What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jay here today, and I am actually going all in today on the normal crazy YouTuber intro where I demand, I do not ask, I do not require your consent to do it. I straight up demand that you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, you comment down below telling me something amazing about yourself or that you love in the video, and let's hop right into it. I pray to God I never do this again. But hey, Batman Beyond. That's something we're going to be talking about today. I've decided not to digest my microphone, unlike last time I made a video by myself. But it's been a while since we made a why games are easy or hard to make. And again, for those who are new to this series, we are not looking as much at the coding side of gaming. We are looking more at game design, at what creativity would go into a game, and if it is possible with current technology from, an outside layman, from a gamer, not a game designer, which I will totally admit I am not. So today we're looking at Batman Beyond because this is one that I think would be very easy to create, with the only problem standing in the way being a brand recognition problem that WB seems to have an issue with, and we'll get into that later. But when we look at the issues with Batman Beyond and why it was never really made into a live-action movie for a long time, some of it was tech. If you look at the series, the animated series, it is all in the future in Neo Gotham, and it stars Terry McGinnis. He is the new Batman, the second Batman, underneath Bruce Wayne. So Bruce is still alive. He's an old man at this point. He's essentially the Alfred of the series, except that he's also competent and talented as a Batman, and he knows what he's doing, and he trains Terry, and he can't do it anymore due to issues with his heart. That is what happened years before the series started in the DCAU animated Batman Beyond series, and so that's essentially where we would pick up with this game. It's interesting to note that there was actually a somewhat similar pitch a few years back, actually I believe about a year back. A lot of images of it were leaked from Project Sabbath, which I went over, which was essentially a planned possible Damian Wayne Batman Beyond game. Now, personally, I don't know why you'd go with Damian Wayne for this. I think the source material of Terry works best, especially when just using that animated series as a blueprint. I do believe that the technology is now there for a movie, but even more than that for a video game. There was an attempt at a video game back on the N64 for the Return of the Joker. That was horrible. We don't really talk about that. No one even likes to acknowledge that it exists. So let's just blaze past that, because that was level based. It was meant to be sort of an action beat 'em up, almost a little bit in the style of something like Turtles in Time, but it really did not work out at all. When we look at Batman Beyond, though, we already have the template for this series, game, standalone, or series in the Arkham franchise. Now, not that everything has to be Arkham, but when it comes to Batman, Arkham worked out incredibly well. What you had was these large, sprawling worlds, which were essentially different parts of Gotham City, at least for the, Origins, City, and Night version releases. Not Asylum, that was more of a small, self-contained area. But you had this big portion of Gotham City that you were able to explore, go around. You would interact with different side missions. You would interact with random crimes that would go on, collectibles in the form of the Riddler trophies, and also, traversal with the Batmobile and with grappling and everything. The thing is, all of the elements that Batman Beyond needs are already present in Batman Arkham Knight, if you just think about it. The only difference, really, would be what it looks like. When we look at the city, it is a modern architecture in Batman Arkham Knight. It is obviously taking place in present day. It's not really the future. It's not really the past. It's just the present. The difference here is you swap all those buildings out with futuristic buildings. I'm not saying that you just take the Arkham Knight map and you do a texture swap, but I'm just saying you design a Gotham City from the ground up with futuristic buildings, like Neo Gotham is in the animated series of Batman Beyond. So you have this future aesthetic, it's sort of a future retro aesthetic going on. You start out in the Batman Beyond suit. Obviously, you can have yourself be pretty much just as powerful as in the Arkham games, because come on, he was stronger than an average man in the Arkham games. So I think this works out completely fine with the suit enhancements that he gets in Beyond. and you go from there. We already had a Batmobile designed for Arkham Knight. The only difference with it in Beyond is that it can fly, and Batman already can fly. I mean, that's something that we've already seen with the grappling and the gliding. You are able to use the grapnel boost and other things to fly around, the only difference being that you eventually have to touch back down. Just like that flight system works in the Arkham games, I believe it would be very easy to implement a flight system of, essentially a flying car in the game. I mean, this is something we've seen in a lot of games in the last decade. It's not something that would be too difficult to do, and it is something that would be able to move the Batmobile around Neo Gotham quickly. The only thing with that is that you would obviously need to design a fairly large map that would have to be competent enough that if you race from one end to the other, it doesn't end in 1 minute, and also so that it feels intentional. Now, the reason I bring that up is because this is a problem I've seen with flying games in the past when it comes to an open world, specifically a game like Superman Returns on the Xbox 360 and also on previous generations like PS2, etc. This game, based off of the Superman movie, Superman Returns, was set to pretty much drop you into a metropolis sandbox. The city was very large. You could fly around at Mach speeds as Superman and move between buildings and all this other stuff. The problem being that the city felt extremely dead. It also felt like a lot of different areas were copies and pastes of other areas of the map, and there were actually no activities in certain areas of the map as well. It felt more like a tech demo than something real. I think that if you're going to make this game, you need to make that city feel alive, like something like the GTA 5 campaign, the story mode, or even Arkham Knight, or Arkham City especially. I think that was the best version of Arkham to make a city feel alive. That is still one of the better games to release you in a sandbox city and make each area of the city feel intentional and well crafted. When we look at that, so we've already got the city established, we've got the Batmobile established. Those are not that difficult to do if you just spend some time on it. But when we actually look at combat, this can essentially run the exact same way as Arkham. I don't think that you need to go and tie this to Arkham, but you certainly can if you want to. Like, if you want to make this an Arkham Batman Beyond game, that's very doable. That would certainly push sales, and I know that you would be able to tie in Terry McGinnis to this franchise very easily. We can look at that as well at the fact that they were trying to do that with Damian Wayne, even though there was really no prior connection to Damian in the previous Arkham games. If they can do that, and if the Batman Beyond DCAU show can introduce Terry McGinnis and make him a beloved Batman successor within the course of 3 animated seasons and 1 movie, plus a couple appearances in Justice League Unlimited, obviously this multi-hour game could do the same. This is something that would be very doable for a developer like Rocksteady or WB Games. However, the question is if they would want to, because it really does come down, I believe, to a brand recognition problem. Yes, this has the Batman title on it, right? You and I probably, if you took the time to watch this video, I don't know, probably love Batman Beyond. You probably really enjoy the depiction, I guess, that Terry McGinnis brings to the character, and the differences between him and Bruce and how they contrast, and what his character actually does in the world. But that doesn't mean that the general audience, who is not that, versed with Batman lore, would really care who Terry McGinnis is, which is one problem that I think they would have run into with Damian Wayne. Yes, that is the biological birth son of Batman, but at the end of the day, what do we keep seeing WB do? What do we keep seeing people buy? Batman. Bruce Wayne, Batman. That's what we keep seeing over and over again. That is always the draw. It's essentially kind of like how Barry Allen has taken the center stage for Flash. Nobody really seems to be super interested in, I would say, Bart Allen or Jay Garrick, or even to some extent Wally West as much as they used to be, because DC for a while has just pushed that Batman is Bruce Wayne is Batman, and that's it. That's the whole character. Because there hasn't really been that much done with Terry outside of some select comic series, I'm not really sure if the brand recognition is there for some people. I think everyone has heard of and knows what Batman Beyond is. I think if you do Batman Arkham Beyond, that's how you sell this game. And I think that that's the problem, is you almost, like I said before, you wouldn't have to tie this into Arkham, But for sales, I almost feel like WB would feel like they had to. And at that point, it's almost easier to make another Bruce Wayne game because, look, I'm not advocating for it, but let's look at what they keep doing with releases of movies. It's always Bruce Wayne as Batman. You know, there's never a Beyond movie or anything like that. We might be building to that finally, but we haven't seen that yet. You know, the Batman Beyond revival was pushed for a long time with WB and even Bruce Timm talking about it, and we haven't heard anything back of that yet, but we keep seeing standalone Bruce Wayne Batman movies, like The Long Halloween coming out, or his inclusion in Justice League movies. At the end of the day, Bruce Wayne is pushed as the brand recognition character here, even though he doesn't have to be at all. And if you did want to actually include this in the Arkham timeline, there's several ways that you could do it. Because for me, I was looking over some of the villains from Beyond just to re-familiarize myself with it, since it's been probably about a year since I watched it, maybe two, since I watched through all of Beyond. I love it, by the way. I'm one of the few people who actually probably prefers Beyond to the original Batman the Animated Series, which I know is blasphemy. But if we look at this, there's several ways you could tie in the Arkham timeline to Beyond. If we look at a gang like the Jokers, you could very easily include the Jokers with Joker as an influence to this gang without needing to use Joker anymore. You know, you lay off of Joker completely in this game without having to use him. God bless Mark Hamill's soul. He does a great job. And you don't need to make this game focused around that character. But if you want to tie it thematically into the previous entries in the series, you can very easily have this group, the gang, the Jokers, that was inspired by the original comics / DCAU / in this case, Arkham universe, Joker. So you can very easily have like the echoes of that character fit there. You can very easily include like tons of different characters that are very small in, I guess, side characters, side villains in the animated series of Beyond, such as Curare. You could very easily include the Royal Flush Gang. We didn't really see much with them other than some references. Villains, time-specific villains like Shriek, who are a little bit like the Shocker from Marvel Comics, which would be very interesting to see in the game. And even Mr. Freeze. Now, you might say, well, Mr. Freeze's story was finished, right? Mr. Freeze's story in Night ended. But the thing is, that's not necessarily true. And there's quite a few characters that saw their end in Arkham Knight that didn't necessarily need to be done completely if you have a good story for them. Mr. Freeze was one of them. Yes, at the end of Night, spoiler alert, for the one person who's, I guess, not smart enough to avoid spoilers, because this video is obviously resting on Arkham's back, at the end of Night, Freeze is going to essentially leave Gotham with Nora to live out her remaining days, together, so that they don't have to be apart. Now, while it could be assumed that Freeze would do something like just die after that, of a broken heart, or his medical condition, or even self-termination, there is the possibility that Mr. Freeze would have survived this traumatic event, with it hardening his heart even more. We don't know what would happen to Victor Freeze without Nora anymore. We don't really know. That's sort of the situation that he found himself in Beyond, where Freeze came back. He was sort of being rehabilitated because he had been kept alive this entire time through science, cryogenically frozen so that they could cure him. And when they bring him back and they try and cure him, he over time becomes kind of corrupted again, and it hits a very tragic point where Freeze essentially, I want to say commits self-termination, but essentially lets himself die. You could very easily continue the story just like you did in the animated series of Beyond. There's also very unique characters as well that you could use, like Ink. The easiest description for this would be kind of like Sandman, but made out of ink, black goo. This character can really move around, and shapeshift would be very interesting to face in combat or stealth, and even Spellbinder, because this is one of the ones that I thought would be the most interesting, is Spellbinder. He's not actually originally from Beyond. He actually came from comics originally, but he was reimagined in the Beyond world, I suppose would be the easiest way to say, as an original character. And he was a psychologist. He was actually a high school psychologist who was able to use mind control abilities. He had a very unique costume. If you remember, an orange guy with black spirals all over him, such as hit movie Spiral from the Book of Saw, which actually tweeted back to me which actually tweeted back to me the other day. This is that sort of character. This character would actually fit in very well in terms of someone like Scarecrow. Because Scarecrow in the original Arkham Asylum was essentially able to not mind control, but use his fear toxin to poison Batman and cause illusions and all kinds of fake stuff all around you that warped the entire world and made you traverse through these massive set pieces that felt very unique. Spellbinder could do something very similar, but without exactly copying that formula, I suppose. How the developers would choose to do that would be up to them, but it would be a very unique way to incorporate stealth or combat into the game with a unique boss battle, which is something that, let's be honest, the Arkham series itself had a hard time doing, was unique boss battles that didn't suck. Finally, I think that one of the most known villains from Beyond was Blight. Blight is one of the arch enemies of Batman Beyond. It's very interesting because his name was Derek Powers. He essentially arranged for Terry McGinnis's father to be assassinated. So there was a very close connection between these two characters, like a personal connection, because this is one of the events that drove Terry to become Batman Beyond, to become the second Batman. So what's interesting about him is he's radioactive. Essentially, he's a glowing skeleton type character. He always reminds me a little bit of Skeletor when I look at him. But if he touches people, he can pretty much just melt them or obliterate them with his own, powers. I mean, he's essentially got like godlike destruction powers if he comes into contact with someone, which would make him, again, a very unique enemy to have to face in order to actually not be touched. This could be something very interesting and challenging for players. And that's the thing with the Beyond world, like Beyond itself, being able to fly, even as Terry, with your wings and your jet propulsion boots instead of just glide. Being able to fly in the Batmobile. Being able to go up against unique characters like Blight, Spellbinder, Ink, even Mr. Freeze again, all these characters, is that this would create a very good extension to existing Batman mythos in video games in the, future, or it could stand on its own as its own property. I really think that this would work very well as a game. I don't know why something like this hasn't been picked up, except for, again, I think brand recognition. Like we see in the comics, the animated movies, and the live action movies over and over again. Sadly, WB and a lot of these other companies, when it comes to their characters, they see something as easy to sell, therefore that's all that people want. I really do think that it would be good for some of these companies to take a page out of someone like Marvel, who is now introducing some legacy versions of characters that actually really work, such as Sam Wilson's Captain America. You can build up a successor to a mantle. You don't have to do it in every case, and you can do a very, very good job with that and make that world interesting and unique, give a little bit of a breather to the original version of the character, and give people something new and fantastic, and still sell it off the Batman name. It's really a win-win. You give your original brand a bit of a rest. You get to push the Batman name as a brand still without just recycling Bruce Wayne for the 50th incarnation in a row, cough, cough, every animated series and comic that just keeps coming out, and do something fresh and original. But that's just my theory, a game theory. Thanks for watching. Wait, can I not steal that?
No, you can say that.
Are you sure? Do you think MatPat will sue me, Jill?
MatPat loves you.
Okay, well, I want to meet MatPat someday.
I love him.
But anyway, let us know what you think in the comments down below. Would you like to see this video, this video game? Would you like to see something else? What is one superhero that you believe it would be very easy or very difficult to see a game from? Very interested to see what you have to say down there. Be sure to check out all the links in the description down below. We have an official Etsy shop where I have designed certain bits of merch related to the channel, and Jill, my wonderful wife, has also designed quite a few different things. Maybe there's something for a sister, a mother, a very confident man, who likes bracelets. The sky is the limit on there.
I also sell earrings and scrunchies.
Yes, those are both there for, they're unisex.
Yeah.
For whoever wants them. We also have Patreon, Twitter, Discord, lots of stuff down there in the description down below, and we want to hear back from you in the comments. Have a fantastic day, and as always, everyone, stay shway.